Stars like The Rock, John Cena, and Dave Bautista have proven that not only can pro wrestlers entertain millions of people around the world every week, but that they can also make millions by successfully making the transition from pro athlete to Hollywood movie star. Although pro wrestlers becoming huge stars on the silver screen are a somewhat recent thing here in the US, that is not the case at all for our southern neighbors, Mexico. Mexican wrestlers have always been larger than life superstars in the ring. But sometime in the 1960s, they took that fame to a whole other level by kicking off what would become a decades-long cultural phenomenon that would turn these wrestlers from beloved stars inside the ring to legends within an entire culture outside of it. So come with me, and let's take a trip down to my cultural homeland as I show you a glimpse into Mexico's unique cinematic marvel, the Luchador films. But before I tell you about these films and their legacies within Mexico's culture, I first have to tell you a little bit about how the sport that inspired them became part of the Mexican culture itself. The origin of Lucha Libre takes us all the way back to the mid-1800s during the occupation of Mexico by the French. There, Mexicans got to observe French culture during their time there. One thing that the French brought with them to Mexico was wrestling. Now, the French weren't doing swanton bombs off the top rope in the 1800s. At least, I don't think that they were. The wrestling that they were doing at that time resembled more of a modern-day Greco-Roman style, or even a very early version of catch wrestling. The man credited for developing the original style of modern-day Lucha Libre was named Enrique Ugarteca. Much like its American counterpart, Lucha Libre was mainly a spectacle sport that existed in things like carnivals and traveling circuses. During the time of the Mexican Revolution in the early 1900s though, Lucha Libre was an essential form of entertainment for Mexicans, as it not only helped entertain them but also distract them from the turbulence of everyday life caused by the ongoing war. This really is the first sign we kinda see of how Lucha Libre would become such a big part of the country's culture in decades to come. Just try to imagine being a kid during such a terrible time period and having to navigate your life around a war every day. But then, being able to see a spectacle like Lucha Libre and then being able to forget about everything going on around you. Just being able to feel. Just a moment of peace. That's definitely something that would stick with you for your entire life. And it wasn't just the kids during this time that enjoyed it, but even the soldiers fighting in the war, who would watch it to distract themselves from the horror surrounding them. It was especially impactful on one revolutionary soldier named Salvador Luchador Gonzalez, who would eventually launch Mexico's first major wrestling promotion called Empresa Mexicana de Lucha Libre, or EMLO in 1933, which actually is still active and running under its new name CMLO. The promotion and its first show on September 21st, 1933 was actually a direct result of a mistreatment of Mexican wrestlers in American promotions. So they decided to boycott their promotions and do shows exclusively in Mexico instead. So one thing that Lucha Libre is known for is their mask. Lots of people think that they started wearing masks to connect to their indigenous Aztec and Mayan roots, as their warriors would wear masks and paint their face to scare and intimidate their enemies. And while I'm sure that probably did have something to do with why they continued to wear them and still wear them till this day, but it's actually not why they started wearing them in the first place. Along with the origin of EMLO, 1933 is actually the same year where we have the first recorded account of a masked luchador in Mexico. An American wrestler named Corbin James came to Mexico to wrestle for EMLO in 1933. He did his booking and got booked again a year later in 1934. But he didn't want to risk being recognized by the crowd, so he asked a wrestling bootmaker named Antonio Martinez to make him a mask that he could use while he wrestled. After some modifications, James got a better and more permanent mask made and wrestled as the luchador named the Masked Marvel. Believe it or not, this is actually the origin of masked wrestlers in Mexico. Well, I mean, if we're being historically accurate, there was technically one person that did it before this.
He's good.
Over the next few decades, Lucha Libre became extremely popular around Mexico. Originally used as a means of escape, it had now transformed into a huge entertainment spectacle, where people would come to let off some steam after a long day's work, or just to come and enjoy the show. Here, people would cheer their favorite technicals or good guys, and boo their most hated rudos or bad guys. The popularity of Lucha Libre slowly grew during this time until about the 1950s, when it exploded, as now it was able to be seen on TV sets in people's homes and community places. This is where we see Lucha Libre officially cement itself in Mexican culture, as almost everyone watched it and enjoyed it. You'd have grandmas watching it with their grandkids, dads at their shows with their children. It was just a thing to do. The sudden surge of popularity and now availability of Lucha Libre just so happened to coincide with the rise to fame of one particular luchador, and that luchador's name was El Santo. El Santo, with his legendary silver mask and gear, was, and actually still is, extremely famous in Mexico. It's honestly kind of a disservice to just call him famous in Mexico. He's a legend throughout all of Latin America. This guy was so popular that in 1951, he was the star of his own weekly comic book series that told stories of him fighting crime. This, mixed with his wrestling popularity, basically made this guy Mexico's Superman, a status that he still holds even decades after his death. You ever seen the greatest wrestling movie of all time, Nacho Libre? Well, Nacho's rival in the film, Ramses, was heavily inspired by El Santo. You can even spot the similarities between them. Ramses has a simple gold mask to Santo's silver mask. Santo has silver tights, Ramses has gold ones. Ramses is big and muscly. Really muscly. And shiny. Trying to capitalize on his fame, Mexican filmmakers decided to make films starring El Santo. Filmed in Cuba in 1958, so you can just imagine how that went. Santo contra Cerebro de Mal, or Santo vs. the Evil Brain, was the first film Santo was ever in. It's not really considered a Santo film. And the main reason that it has that reputation is because despite Santo wearing his iconic gear, his mask, and having his name at the title of the movie, he doesn't actually play El Santo like he would in later films. Instead, he's credited in this movie as a character named El Enmascarado, who is an undercover cop. Well, technically he's an undercover cop that is under a mask, so he's undercover. This film starts off right away with Santo getting jumped by gang members, in a fight scene that would honestly probably make the director of John Wick cry. It's not the best. The gang members subdue Santo and proceed to throw him in a car that they then drive away for what seems like an eternity. I shit you not, this whole sequence of them driving is just a series of different driving shots that last, and I'm not making this up, 1 minute and 21 seconds. Anyways, they drive Santo to the lab of an evil scientist that injects him with a serum that allows him to control Santo's mind. Now brainwashed, Santo is now a member of the gang that captured him. He helps them kidnap a doctor by taking out the security detail that he had protecting him.
Mil Mascaras.
They do this by pretending to be his new guards and place him in a car for... Oh hey, 38 seconds. That's actually not bad. 38 seconds is that's decent, I guess. I mean, luckily the filmmakers didn't do that twice and they learned their lesson. Hopefully. It turns out that the men they beat up were actually cops, and when they report to their captain that the doctor was kidnapped, he assigns them to protect another doctor after he thinks that that doctor might be the target of the next kidnapping. But the doctor they're assigned to protect is actually the one behind the kidnapping. He's also the one responsible for brainwashing Santo. Another masked character named El Incognito is introduced as he breaks into the doctor's lab when he isn't there. He then shoves a paper that he finds down his crotch, and while he's roaming around, he gets attacked by El Santo. The two then fight. After the fight, Incognito gives Santo the antidote shot, which reverses his hypnosis. However, Santo still pretends to be brainwashed in order to infiltrate the gang. Back at his home, the evil doctor escapes his police security and drives away for... Please don't be long, please don't be long, please don't be long. El Incognito later gets into the hideout that the doctor and his crew use. It turns out that he's actually a masked hero that works with the police just like El Santo does. After doing some recon in the hideout, he goes to the police station and tells the captain about everything that's going on. Later at the warehouse, the doctor and the gang are about to do a deal with another criminal when Incognito attacks the group before the police arrive. Once he sees the fight break out, the evil doctor takes the woman that he's been holding hostage away while Santo teams up with Incognito and takes out the rest of the gang. The doctor takes his hostage back to his house, and when the police arrive, Santo enters to the back, while Incognito tries to reason with the doctor from the front. It didn't work out so well. Santo then makes it into the house and starts fighting with the doctor, where towards the end, the doctor actually has the upper hand as he's about to stab at Santo, when he's then shot by the police captain. The doctor then dies and the movie ends with a happy ending. Is that another f***ing driving scene? Although this film isn't really considered the first real El Santo film, it is the one that started it all. It's also the one that proved to the Mexican government that this type of film, along with El Santo himself, could be hugely profitable for them. Oh wait, have I not mentioned the Mexican government's role in the film industry at this time yet? Oh, my bad. During this time, the Mexican government was solely funding the entire country's film industry in hopes of keeping it alive. You see, the film industry in Mexico was on life support and in serious risk of just not existing in general. The people that were responsible for this near collapse of the industry were actually the same ones responsible for making it a thriving industry in the first place. The good old US of A, brother! From the halls of Montezuma to the shores of Tripoli. You see, during World War II, the US saw Mexico as a really important asset to the film industry, film production, and the war effort itself. So they began to provide Mexico with the celluloid used to make films, as well as tons of films that were from the US. They also might have thrown in a war propaganda film here and there. Because of this direct support from the US, Mexico basically had a monopoly on the Spanish-speaking film market around the world, which in turn made them lots of money. Also, Mexicans really liked the American films that were now available in the country. So much so that it kind of reset the expectation that audiences now had for what a film should be. That'll actually come into play later, so remember that. So World War II happens, the US single-handedly win the entire thing, we become back-to-back World War champs, we raised a big flag on a big mountain, yada yada yada. Then came the post-war Mexican film industry, where the US no longer supplied the materials or support needed by the country to continue their booming industry. And since they didn't have the help they once did, Mexico lost its hold on the entire Spanish-speaking market, which caused the film industry in the country to plummet drastically. In an attempt to try to save the industry, Mexico decided to basically turn it into a state-ran monopoly. Well, not basically, that's actually exactly what they did. They ended up establishing El Banco Cinematográfico to fund projects. In order for the films to get approved for funding, they'd have to meet certain requirements. And these are the requirements they'd have to meet. I'm not going to bother reading all of them, but you can see that it's a lot, and it's really confusing, honestly. Other factors that determine how much productions would actually receive from the government were the production company's past project successes, actors involved, and detailed spending estimates. A big factor among those was if the proposed projects were considered what's known as low risk, high reward, which is a pretty difficult thing to calculate just based off some concepts for the scripts. Also, what exactly is high risk, high reward? Well, the answer and perfect example of that was El Santo. El Santo proved to the government that films could be made at a low cost and produce high profits at the box office. And since El Santo's films proved their concepts, they decided to make more of them. They actually made a lot more of them. I think the first real Santo film that set the stage for what the genre would later become is called El Santo contra los Zombies, or El Santo versus the Zombies. This film was actually the first of his movies to ever be filmed in Mexico and not an active war zone. I mean, Cuba. This film is also one of only 4 Santo films to ever be dubbed into English. This film opens up with footage of 2 El Santo matches, with one of them being a partial match and the other being an entire one. By the way, as a lifelong pro wrestling fan, I have to say, it is an absolute treasure to have surviving footage of one of the most legendary wrestlers of all time in a match. That has nothing to do with this movie at all, I just honestly thought it was really cool. Anyway, in the crowd of the match we're showing this guy, who's named Detective Rodriguez. He's told after the match by 2 other detectives that they are needed back at headquarters. There they meet a character named Gloria and her blind uncle named Gennaro. Gloria's father is a scientist that's been studying zombies in Haiti, and he's recently gone missing. We then see the zombies in this film breaking into a store to rob it. And as they do that, one of them is shot by a security guard, but it doesn't do anything at all to him. After hearing that not even bullets can stop these men, the police chief calls El Santo for help, which he answers on his Santo phone, which he keeps in his Santo cave. The zombies then break into an orphanage to kidnap some kids for their master, who we only know as this hooded man. They want a kid so that he can experiment on them, and once they get one, they'll probably just end up pulling an Anakin during Order 66 on the rest of them. But right as the zombies are about to make off with some kids, that sounds so weird to say out loud, El Santo comes and fights them off to the outside of the orphanage. And as he's getting absolutely mollywopped outside, backup arrives to save him, until the backup is taken down by just one blow from one of the zombies. But luckily, all the zombies have valid insurance, because they all hop in the car and drive away after that. Later in the film, the zombies break into a character named Isabel's house to kidnap her, until Santo arrives to save her. While Santo fights them, the zombies group together and then one of them very seductively wiggles his belt and they vanish into thin air. In an effort to get rid of Santo for good, the hooded figure tasks the zombies with kidnapping another wrestler named Dorel, which they successfully do, and then the hooded figure... Wait, there's 2 of them now? Anyway, they turn him into a zombie and they send him in to wrestle Santo, in the hopes that he'd kill him in the ring, which he kinda almost does, until he's discovered to be a liar because his pants catch on fire. See kids, don't lie. Or else you'll die, apparently. After the match, Santo goes to Dorel's apartment to look for clues as to who could do this to him, when, surprise, a zombie attacks him. Another zombie appears, and as Santo is being held down, the hooded figure orders the zombies to unmask him. But right as they're about to do so, Santo counters them and lights another zombie's crotch on fire. He actually kicks him in the belt that the zombie's wearing, which it turns out is actually how the hooded figure is able to control them. Santo then gets hit by another zombie, but instead of killing Santo, like I thought he was supposed to do, he instead picks up Fire Crotch and they both escape. Damn, that's a real bro. Leave no man behind. Respect, man, respect. Later, Gloria is kidnapped and taken to the hooded figure's lair. Santo then pulls up in his Santo-mobile to save her. Whoa, Santo, slow down, bro. I mean, love who you love, but at least take him out to dinner first. Santo then fights both hooded men, causing one of them to be stabbed and the other to be launched into an electrical panel that unalives him, and the rest of the zombies as well. It's then revealed that the hooded figure is actually Gloria's blind uncle, who was faking his blindness this whole time. Over time, El Santo's movies evolved in almost every aspect. As more films came out, he transformed from just a crime-fighting luchador to El Santo, the luchador who fought things like lady vampires, or went on adventures inside a death hotel, or even an evil wax museum. All while being a cool ladies' man that drove nice cars and was seemingly untouchable against any opponent. And as El Santo the movie character grew in each film, so did his popularity in real life, turning him from just Mexico's favorite luchador into Mexico's very own Superman. And as the Mexican government saw this luchador basically become the beating heart of their entire film industry, they decided to try and replicate El Santo's box office success by trying out his proven formula with an all-new original concept. Nah, I'm just kidding. They just did the exact same thing that El Santo was doing, but just with a different luchador. And that new luchador that they tried out was actually one of El Santo's arch rivals. Despite his portrayal in film and in-ring as one of the most famous good guys in Lucha Libre, Santo was actually a bad guy, or a rudo, early in his career. And not just a regular bad guy who would try and foil his opponent's chance of winning, but a vicious and violent rudo that would do anything to win. And after a historical match versus match against a wrestler named Black Shadow, in which Santo won, he and Black Shadow's tag team partner, Blue Demon, would embark on one of the most legendary Lucha Libre rivalries in history, with Santo as a perfect rudo to Blue Demon's technical. The two would have amazing matches that people would pay great money to see. The two's rivalry got so big that they even broke multiple attendance records for their matches. So with Santo now on top of the film industry, the Mexican government figured that they could replicate the success that the two had in the ring, but now on screen. But this time with both men being good guys and even being partners together in some films. Blue Demon and El Santo would appear together on the screen for the first time in Blue Demon contra el Porro Satánico, or Blue Demon vs. the Satanic Power in 1966. In 1914, a serial killer who was found guilty of unaliving several young women is sentenced to death. But before he is set to be unalived himself, he enters a catatonic state and is presumed dead by the guards and a doctor. He enters this catatonic state on purpose in hopes of being placed in the morgue where he figured an autopsy would be performed on him, where he could then wake himself up and escape before it was performed and anybody noticed. But instead, he just ends up getting buried alive. 50 years pass until a group of grave robbers dig him up in hopes of finding riches. Oh yeah, he's also, like, super rich, by the way. But instead of receiving loads of riches, they get attacked by him as he awakes from his catatonic state. Just like most of the films in this genre, we get a wrestling match. Blue Demon wins this match. And afterwards, he and his cousin head to the locker room where his cousin tells him that he's gonna leave and go hang out with his girlfriend. We then see El Santo appear in the film in his very own match. It's happening. We finally get to see El Santo, Blue Demon on the screen together for the very first time. I'm so excited. Wait, what? While out with his girlfriend, Blue Demon's cousin Raul and her get hypnotized by the serial killer, which puts both of them in a trance. The killer then takes advantage of this by easily unaliving Raul and abducting his girlfriend. He then leads her back to his secret lair. The police call Blue Demon to inform him about his cousin. At Raul's funeral, Blue Demon promises that he will find whoever did this and get vengeance on them for his cousin. You know, this is kind of weird to say, but for a serial unaliver, this guy is actually pretty tame. We learn that he strangled Raul and 4 other people that night, but he's not particularly gruesome in the way that he does it. Well, at least that's what I thought until I saw him lead Raul's girlfriend into a room in his secret lair, which turns out to be a furnace, where he proceeds to literally set her on f***ing fire and burn her alive. Blue Demon and his giant biceps end up reading up on how people with incredibly powerful minds can send themselves into a catatonic state and awake years later. And while he's learning this, the killer can sense this, so he proceeds to hatch a plan to unalive Blue Demon by hypnotizing another wrestler to unalive him in the ring, which fails after Blue Demon uses his eagle powers on him when he's outside of the ring. It turns out that the eagle egg that Blue Demon drank was a little too powerful though, because he actually ends up unaliving his opponent instead. Luckily, it's shown later in a newspaper headline that Blue Demon was acquitted of all charges against the other wrestler. We then get the first appearance of these two former rivals on screen together for the very first time. I can't wait to see these guys kick ass together. This is gonna be so f***ing cool. Wait. That's it? That's it? Blue Demon and his pecs continue to investigate Raul's death, until the killer finds him and hypnotizes Blue Demon, and then leads him up to a rooftop where he orders him to jump. Which he does, but instead of falling to his death, he does some parkour and calls the killer a bitch. Nah, I'm just kidding. He just ends up telling him that he's not as powerful as he thinks he is. Which is basically the same thing, right? Blue Demon, now accompanied by some cops, follow the killer back to his lair. They then find him unalived as a partly decomposed skeleton. And it turns out that since he got called a bitch by Blue Demon, he lost his powers and 50 years of not eating or drinking caught up to him and he died. And that's literally how the movie ends. You know, some people say that sticks and stones may break my bones but words will never hurt me. But those people have obviously never talked to Blue Demon because his words can literally kill you. But you know what word can't hurt you? Subscribe. If you want to be protected from Blue Demon, subscribe to this channel. And don't forget to like this video. And if you know anyone who likes pro wrestling or movies or TV or any of the other stuff I talk about on this channel, send them this video. Thank you so much for your support. I genuinely really appreciate it. Now that you subscribed and Blue Demon can no longer hurt you, let's continue. El Santo and Blue Demon would team up in many films, and would gain massive success both at the box office and in-ring over the years. Like I mentioned about El Santo before, Blue Demon also evolved as a character in every single movie. So by the time we get to the team-up films between the two, they aren't just two masked crime fighters. They're two fully fleshed out characters that just happen to go on adventures together. But I think the peak of their team-up films came in the 1970s, in the film Santo y Blue Demon contra los monstruos, or Santo and Blue Demon versus the monsters. This film is a perfect example of what this genre would eventually evolve into. It's not like any of the ones I mentioned before at all. You'll see what I mean. The movie of course starts off with a wrestling match just like all the other ones. Wait, is that El Santo in the crowd? That's weird. Okay, well, I mean, at least Blue Demon's in the ring. Wait, that's not Blue Demon. Who is that? Is that girls? Oh, hey, there he is. After some wrestling, we're put into a funeral scene of a recently defeated Santo and Blue Demon villain named Bruno. There we meet Bruno's brother, Otto, and his daughter named Gloria. We also meet Waldo and some zombies who came to respectfully say goodbye to their boss, as they mourn his loss. Oh, wait, never mind, nope, never mind, they're totally stealing his body. Santo and Blue Demon talk about how Santo has a bad feeling about Bruno's death, since he's concerned for Gloria. Oh yeah, Gloria is Santo's girlfriend, by the way. Blue Demon reassures Santo and sets off on a vacation that he was about to take. But while driving to start his vacation, he notices Bruno's henchman carrying a body to his castle. Blue Demon ends up driving to the castle to investigate what's going on inside. Waldo, the zombies, and I'm sorry, what was her name? Got it. And Frank reanimate Bruno and bring him back to life. Meanwhile, Blue Demon is there spying on them when one of the zombies attack him. The zombie then captures him and brings him over to Bruno, where he then clones Blue Demon and makes an evil version of him that he can fully control himself. He then sends Bizarro Demon and the other zombies to kill El Santo. Bizarro Demon stops Santo's car and the two start fighting as the zombies grab Gloria. Bizarro Demon then obeys his command by trying to unalive Santo, which he does by literally throwing him off of a cliff. The zombies and Bizarro Demon drive Gloria back to the castle, when all of a sudden Santo appears driving behind them and pulls up next to the car, where Gloria jumps through a window into Santo's car. Not gonna lie, this whole sequence, it's actually pretty cool. Unable to successfully unalive Santo and capture Gloria, Bruno sends his crew to recruit the other monsters to join the ranks. First, they get the Vampire, who actually attacks the zombies until Bizarro Demon controls him with the ring that he has on. Next, they get the Mummy, which, believe it or not, they just recruit by just picking up his coffin while he's still in it and just taking him. Like, they just steal him, it's pretty funny. Then back at the lab, we're introduced to the Cyclops, the Wolfman. Oh, and this is supposed to be Frankenstein. With his whole crew now assembled, Bruno sets the monsters loose, and they start causing chaos around the town. This is where we see what is probably the furthest departures from the previous films to now, as we literally get scenes of the Wolfman breaking into a home and unaliving an entire family. Yeah, even the kid. We also see Frankenstein, who steps on a dude's head and crushes it. Then he abducts that guy's girlfriend afterwards. The absolute best part of this movie, though, comes when Santo fights the Cyclops, and it's just amazing. Just take a look. I also want to stop here and point something out. You see this seemingly random jump cut? Well, it's actually not random at all. This movie is full of them, and a huge portion of this film is literally just a montage of random scenes put together to music. It's kind of like if Quentin Tarantino made Robot Chicken. That's a really weird analogy, I know, but trust me, if you watch this, you'll completely understand what I mean. With the Cyclops out, the remaining monsters descend upon Otto's and Gloria's home. The vampire attacks Gloria while the others attack Otto. And then we get another random jump cut, and with no explanation, Santo is now randomly there and he's fighting all the monsters. The monsters then get called back to the castle by Bruno because the sun is coming up. We then go to the wrestling arena, where the monsters and Bruno are preparing the vampire to be in a match against Santo. We then get a match between them where the vampire has the upper hand and is about to bite Santo when he notices the cross that Gloria has on. He then turns into a bat and flies away. All hell then breaks loose as the monsters start swarming the ring and start fighting Santo and a couple other wrestlers. Later we see the vampire attack a woman and bite her, giving us the final member of the monster squad, the lady vampire. I mean, vampire ladies. Later, while at some type of event, Santo, Gloria, and Otto are attacked by the monsters, and eventually they're able to subdue Santo long enough to kidnap Otto and Gloria. As Bruno is getting ready to seek his revenge on them, Santo fights Bizarro Demon, and when he defeats him, he frees the original Blue Demon. The two then team up and clean house, while setting the lab on fire, but not before making a pit stop to unalive all of the vampires. Then the film ends as the four of them stand on a hill and watch the castle burn. I know it seems like I'm shitting on this movie with all the jokes I'm making, but honestly, I'm not. I genuinely love this film. Sure, it's campy, it's low budget, but that's why it's so good. That's why this whole genre is so good. They take these insane concepts and they make the best out of them. Remember when I said that American films changed the standard for films in Mexico? Well, the previous films that we spoke about that starred these two luchadors were the Mexican government's attempt to replicate all the movies that America was putting out. They tried to match America's serious storylines and spy movies that were being released at the same time. But at some point, it's like they just said, fuck it. And they made movies just like this. And the Mexican audiences loved them. See, they weren't just replicas of the US's films, they were Mexican films, and they were unique to them and to their culture. While Blue Demon and El Santo would still team up from time to time, they still had their solo adventures too. And all the films now basically followed this film's format. No more serious storylines, just pure campy chaos, and they were great. Santo went on to fight Martians and Frankenstein's daughter. He even took on La Llorona, believe it or not. Blue Demon went on to fight spiders and the Mafia and mummies. And while Santo and Blue Demon enjoyed successful careers that started in the ring and later went onto the screen, there was one person during that time that actually did the opposite. He found success that started on the screen first and then later in the ring. And that man's name was Mil Mascaras. Mil Mascaras is known now as an extremely legendary wrestler, but he wasn't always a legend, and in fact, he wasn't always a real wrestler. Before he ever stepped foot into the ring, he was just a character on screen. Mil Mascaras came around during the boom period of the Luchador films. A Mexican producer had been unable to work with Del Santo because the two just straight up didn't like each other. And he couldn't work with Blue Demon because Blue Demon was injured and he was taking some time off to heal. So what do you do if you can't make a movie with the two biggest characters in film? Well, you make your own. Mil Mascaras starred in his first film in 1968 called Los Canales, which literally translates to The Scoundrels. This film starts off with the man of 1,000 masks driving his car, when a smoke grenade gets thrown inside of it, causing what I think is a perfect 60s era car crash. The main bad guy of this movie is named Cadena, who is seeking revenge on Mil for sending her boyfriend Rocco to jail. The people responsible for throwing the smoke grenade in the car are these two who... Did I choose the wrong movie for my hard drive? Like the other films in this genre, of course, we get a Mil Mascaras match. We also get tons of great campy scenes. Scenes like Mil in his locker room when all of a sudden Cadena and a gang of her thugs appear behind him and start attacking him. Which gives us this great moment where she tries to unmask him and it's actually revealed that he's wearing another mask underneath the mask that he's already wearing. Or this scene, which starts off as a classic 60s over-the-top dance scene, full of bright colors and people dancing, but it actually ends up being a voodoo ceremony where they end up slicing a girl's back with a knife. Don't worry though, she's fine. Or at least I assume she is because they just go right back to dancing afterwards. And isn't this scene of a paint bucket exploding cool? Just kidding. It's actually a scene of a character emptying an entire magazine on a guy that's inside of a barrel. This film ends exactly as you would imagine it would. A girl is in danger and tied up until the masked man comes in and saves her. Wait, that sounds like another movie I have in my hard drive. This movie was a perfect addition to this already booming genre, as audiences loved Mil Mascaras and they wanted to see more of him. So, seeing how successful and loved he was, the decision was finally made to pair up the three biggest box office stars of El Santo, Blue Demon, and Mil Mascaras together in a film. And that film would be 1972's Los Momias de Guanajuato, or The Mummies of Guanajuato. In real life, Guanajuato is known for its mummies which are on a display in a museum there. So, trying to merge real life with fiction, this film follows a main mummy who was apparently a wrestler named Satan, who lost his championship to El Santo 100 years earlier and made a deal with the devil to get revenge on Santo. But not the Santo that we know. There apparently was another El Santo 100 years ago who defeated Satan. But since he's no longer around, I guess he figures the current one will have to do. And if it's not obvious enough already, we of course get a wrestling match. But this time, it's a tag team match between Mil Mascaras and Blue Demon. The two are told about Satan being awakened, and although he doesn't believe it, Mil goes to investigate anyways. As Blue Demon leaves the arena, Satan knocks him out and proceeds to the ring, where he has a flashback to when old El Santo beat him. Oh yeah, and then he unalives the dude. But the dude shoots him first, so technically it's self-defense, right? Oh, but not this guy though, he just unalives him for fun. Oh, and that guy too apparently. Later, three mummies end up attacking Blue Demon. Wait, there's three of them now? What happened to Satan? Oh, there he is. Oh, okay, so he's waking up the other mummies. That makes sense. Wait, are those Blue Demon's clothes? Isn't this guy supposed to be going after Santo? What is his problem with Blue Demon? Oh, hey Santo. So this whole time, Santo hasn't been around and he has absolutely no clue what's been going on with the mummies. He just so happens to stop in Guanajuato after a match so that he can rest. Oh yeah, and then he gets jumped by the mummies literally the moment he pulls into town. Now multiplied, the mummies begin terrorizing the town until Santo appears and finally gets to square off with Satan. They then end up in a cemetery where the mummies try their best to battle Santo until Blue Demon and Mil Mascaras come to his aid. And this here is when we get to see these three Mexican icons on screen together for the very first time, which I can only imagine caused the theater to sound like this. Wait a minute, play that again. Stop right there. Is it just me, or does Santo's voice not line up with what he's saying? It almost seems like his voice was like dubbed over or something. But why? Could it be that they did this on purpose to not reveal his real voice in hopes of concealing his real identity? Or could it also be that they did this because he spent his entire career going to great lengths to protect his identity, and not only had his face covered in public at all times, but also had all of his lines in every single one of his films dubbed over by a separate actor? What am I saying? I probably just have a bad copy. The three then defeat the mummies with Santo's personal flamethrower pistols that he luckily just so happens to have in his car. Then all three celebrate by driving their convertibles down the road, in an ending that would make even Vin Diesel cry. Not only did these three team up on screen, but also in the ring, as they went on to have years of legendary matches together, as well as still having huge individual successful careers on their own. These three superstars continued to release legendary films one by one for many more years until they slowly stopped making movies, due to not only them aging, but also because more and more independent Mexican productions slowly started taking over the box office, which eventually caused this once untouchable genre to slowly go away entirely. El Santo's last film would be released in 1982, although he did have a cameo in a film starring his son in 1983. And after years of being so protective of his identity, he did finally show his face on a TV show in 1984. That actually was just months before him passing away at the age of 67. Blue Demon's last film appearance would be in 1979. He would pass away in 2000 at the age of 78. Mil Mascaras' last film would be in 2013. He was also the first Mexican inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame in 2012. At the time of filming this, Mil Mascaras is currently 82 years old. All three of these men have gigantic legacies that honestly all deserve a video in itself to explain them properly. But the legacy of the Mexican luchador film genre still echoes till this day in Mexico. Not only is this genre of film responsible for single-handedly saving the entirety of a country's film industry, but it has also been able to bring generations of Mexicans together through their entertainment. You see, this genre isn't just a bunch of fun, entertaining films that lasted decades. They are films that represent a culture itself. They're films that an entire culture are proud of and love. My first love in life was pro wrestling, and I still love it. And part of that is because wrestling isn't just an art form to me, it's part of my culture. When Mexico was at risk of losing film, they turned to the one thing that they always turned to save them. It saved them during times of oppression, war, and revolution. They turned to Lucha Libre. Have you seen any of these films? Did you even know that this genre existed? Let me know in the comments below. Thank you guys so much for watching, and as always, don't forget, you matter, you're loved, and if no one's told you today, I love you. Thank you so much for watching. See you next time. I wish you guys could see my dog right now. She is judging me so hard. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Why the f is Blue Demon driving a red car? His name is literally Blue. My dog's backing out of the room. Okay, sorry. Okay, I'll stop.